Mr. Sojedi, we had a first part of our interview on Edi Rama's, Prime Minister of Albania's, announcement that he intends to create a microstate for the Bektashi Sufi order. So, in our first interview, you explained the purpose of this creation, which is to counter radical Islam in Europe and to counter with values that follow tolerance and love and harmony and individual rights and citizen rights.
Yes.
So the Bektashi is a Sufi order. You explained about Sufism in our first interview. Now
Yes.
let's look a bit deeper into what are Bektashi Sufis. Please,
Yes.
can you start with explaining the term of Bektash?
The term of Bektaş means is another Turkish word, Turkish expression, and it means that somebody who is accompanying a big person, a great person. And I think that this name is given to them because the founder of this order, Muhammad Veli, Bektash. So Bektash is a title, it's not the name. The name was Muhammad Veli. He was also an Iranian, born in Khorasan, in the eastern part of Iran, and later he immigrated to the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was at the beginning, at the starting, was very small, and he was welcomed by the emperor. I think that first emperor of the Ottoman Empire, and this title is given to him because he was always in a company of the Ottoman emperor. This is the meaning. Of course, there is another meaning to explain, but this is more famous, more known meaning of this word. But I have to say that then I mean that this was I think about 13 or 14th century, but then still the Bektashi or Sufi order was not made yet. He had trained. He had tried to train some soldiers of the Sultan. You know that have you ever heard about the Janissaries? And the Janissary was a special force in Ottoman Empire, in Ottoman army. But you know that, for example, the military, if when we think that the military training consists of two parts. One part is soul and body training, and the other part is pure military techniques. Then Muhammad Bektash helped the Ottoman Empire, Ottoman Emperor, to provide some soul and body training for the Janissaries, and the Janissaries that were and became a special force within the Ottoman Empire later. But the Bektashi, as now we know, become a Sufi order 200 years later, when for the first time Shah Ismail, King Ismail, the first king of the Safavids, imported, if I may use this word, some clergies from south of Lebanon because south of Lebanon, as now is always was Shi'i religious region, and actually we can say that is one of the most important Shi'i regions in the world. Then Iran was not Shi'i yet. And that King Ismail, when founded the emperor of Safavids, he tried to make an Shi'i identity for his Safavi emperor, Safavi Empire, against and before the Ottoman Empire, because it's very important to know that the Ottoman Empire has defined a mission for themselves as the fourth caliphate. The first caliphate in Islam was Rashidun. It took, I think, 25-year-old or 30-year-old after death of Prophet. And then the second caliphate was Umayyi Empire, and this caliphate took, I think, 90 years. And then we have the third caliphate, Abbasid. Have you ever heard? Maybe. And it took about 500 years. And then we have the Ottoman, and the Ottoman Empire was the fourth caliphate. If you remember, the ISIS also defined as himself as a fifth caliphate after the Ottoman Empire, the fifth caliphate in Islam. So the Ottoman Empire defined him as an fourth caliphate in Islam, and the emperor of Ottoman expected that all the Islamic regions or all the Muslims obey him and be under obedience. And of course, in Iran was not so, and the King Ismail, to make another identity against this caliphate identity, try to import some clergies, Shia clergies from the South Lebanon to Iran, and they make the Shia as an compulsory religion in Iran. And it makes very problems and conflicts between the local people and the newcomers, I mean, the religion, the Shia clergies. Anyhow, Shah Ismail, King Ismail, when founded his empire, tried to make some conflicts with the Ottoman Empire, and then Ottoman Empire was involved in war in the middle of Europe to conquer the European territories. And you know that, for example, the Balkan and to borders of Italy was captured. The Greece, for example, totally was captured by the Ottoman Empire. And maybe I have to point out that the mother of the King Ismail was also a Christian, and some historians believe that the King Ismail made an Shia in Iran was an plan to make pressure on the Ottoman Empire. Anyhow, the opening of second front in the eastern borders of the Ottoman Empire caused that the Ottoman Empire to transfer his army from the Europe to the most extent western borders, northwest to the south in the borders with Iran, and was a great chance for the European to reinforce and to have a breeze and to have a pause against the pressure of the Ottoman Empire. And since then, somebody who his name was Balens tries to use the Bektashi also as an organizer for the Yenisseris. I said that the Yenisseri, they were some special force in Ottoman Empire, Ottoman forces, and Salem was also one of the figures of the Bektashi. Since then, the Bektashi became an order, an Sufi order. And they was in close relation with the Ottoman Empire, and they were in the state. So when we see that now, for example, Bektashi in Albania comes in the state, or they sovereign, or they suppose that they have also, I think that 27 Akrav territory. It's not unprecedented. Before that, the Bektashi was also engaged in the in the state. This was actually a technique, or maybe to say a tactic against the Shah Ismail tactic, because Shah Ismail was, and King Ismail was also a Sufi, and he used the Sufi capacities, because maybe I don't mention that, I didn't mention in previous session that consistency for the teachings of the Sufis make some extra, some capacities which seems extraordinary to those who didn't follow these techniques and these practices. And Shah Ismail tried to use these extraordinary capacities in the war, and actually worked. This tactic of Shah Ismail worked. And that's why in the other side, they try also to use at the same technique. I mean that they use the Sufis, the extraordinary capacities of the Sufis against the Shah Ismail and against the Safavids. And that's why two sides fighting each other, they were also Sufis. And this is precedence of using of Sufis in the state. Of course, my opinion about the use of the Sufis in the state is not so good. So Sufis, as I explained, is an techniques, is a school, not a school of thought, because the thought, I mean that the Sufis is not about the scholars or about the theories. The Sufis is practice, about the practical techniques. But anyhow, Sufi, we can compare the Sufis like an university. The university can deliver some scholars, some educated people for the state. It's no problem. But university by itself cannot run a state. So it's very a mistake. I think it should be a big mistake. Anyhow, the use of the Sufism as the Bektashi in the state comes back to Wallenstein. He was one of the figures in the Bektashi. But I think that they were a problem between Bektashi and Ottoman Empire, and when they have to stop their work, their residence in Turkey in Ottoman, and they were expelled to the Albania, most of them, and even the centrality of the order was transferred to the Albania. Another point that I have to point out that is very important is that the region between Iran and Ottoman, named Anatolia, you know that Anatolia is an mountains and big regions. This is the place of the usually Kurdish people, but the religion is Alawi, and Alawi is something like Shia, but not Shia. They don't consider themselves as a Shia group or Shia religion. They have their own religion, and this religion was in contrast with the official Ottoman Empire. And usually the Shah Ismail, King Ismail, try to use this contrast against the Ottoman Empire, and that's why this region was always sensitive. Now it's also sensitive. Have you ever heard that always a conflict in the eastern part of Turkey, and now is also problem because of the historical precedents. the historical backgrounds. So when the Bektashi transferred to the Albania, I mean that the headquarter or the master of the Bektashi were transferred to Albania. Too many people from the Anatolia, they were also to the Albania. That's why now we have a very big and powerful minority or variation of the Alawi.
They are 5%, Bektashis are 5% of the Albanian population, right?
Yes, but we don't know about the population who, I mean that, yes, these are official that they are connected to the Bektashi. But I think that means that 10% of the Albanian population are Shia, I think, I have heard. 50% are Muslims and 10% are Shia. It means that because you know that the Islam have three ways for spreading. One of them was with the fight. The second was by the commerce, by the commercial, and the third was by the Sufis. So the Sufis also they were used by the Muslims to spread Islam across the world. And in Albania, I have heard and I have read that besides the conquest of the Ottoman Empire, also the presence of the Bektashi was very influential to spread of the Islam in the country. Anyhow, the Bektashi has always and very close ties with the Turkey government and also with the Ottoman Empire. And now has close ties also with the Albanian government. So I think that these ties will be used to the against the use of Sufism as a terrorism by the Islamic regime in Iran. And I think that they are going the same tactics that they in the past the Ottoman Empire used against once before that. So it's not a totally unprecedented. I have explained that when Shah Ismail used the Sufism, the state Sufism, for war and fight and struggle against the Ottoman Empire, they use also the Bektashi the same techniques in this in front of this to cope with these techniques. I think that once again they are going, but this time is with the peaceful goals, not really fight. I mean that not for expansionism meanings, but for the keeping the force, keeping the peace and friendship values.
All right. So what you think, Mr. Haj Dede Edmond Brahimaj, who is the head of the Bektashi order in Albania, what do you think his motive is to agree to such a plan?
Well, we have pay attention that in such region this plan is not really very strange, because anyhow in Greece and Italy we have the same plans. I mean that the city status. For example, in Holy See, you know that, or Vatican, they can compare, because they said that in Christianity we have a Holy See or Vatican, why in Islam not? Maybe it can be a model for the other Islamic countries, that they make some small pieces of land for the religious authority, for the religion and religious authority, and the same of the country and the rest of the country be in the secularism without intervention of the religious forces. It could be a good idea, like Vatican, for example. But there is too much problems, too much challenges should be solved, because by the Holy See, you know that before the establishment of nation state. They already existed, and they have centuries of exercising of authority, of power, and then they make a contract with the other European powers to divide the territories. But for Bektashi, it's just from zero. They are going to establish such country from zero, from nothing, and how we can deal with the legal issues, legal identity. The Holy See is already a non-legal identity in the international law. There is too much contract and too much procedures during hundreds of years. This procedure is all accepted and institutionalized in international law. But for Holy See, how can we deal? Can be a member state of the United Nations or not? Can be recognized by the other Islamic countries or not? It's also important. But I think that as an start is a good idea if they want to pose or to present and model and pattern for the other Islamic countries to make a distinction and make separation between religion and politics. In this sense, I think that it should be good.
All right. So in our third interview, which we will have soon, we want to precise and look into the connection between the regime in Iran and how they made use of Sufis and Sufism and how they are promoting hate right now.
Yes.
And to see how this connection is between radical Islam promoted by the regime in Iran and this Islam or maybe values of tolerance promoted by Sufism, and what is the relevance of the idea of Edi Rama, Prime Minister of Albania, to have a kind of a state, Bektashi microstate. We will look deeper into that.
Yes, of course.